What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. We weren't going to do the INTJ Insecurity video this evening. I had something a little more positive planned around ENTJs. However, holy Jesus, I just got done doing some brain surgery on an ENTJ. To an extent I haven't worked in years. At least that cleanly and quickly. That ENTJ from a few months ago was the passion, which was nice. Could have been nicer. But this one was the profession. And wow, I can fuck up a lot of things, but I like knowing that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to my preferred type. And when you're dealing with a patient who, at minimum, accepts they're ill, almost a decade of work can happen so fast. My head's spinning. We'll see over time if we get anywhere. Because this is another fold of this shadow types thing. The way I've been learning about ENTJs for the longest time has been in large part so we can become symbiotic organs with one another. Or at least I and an ENTJ woman can. In other words, I don't need to figure out how you should operate as best you can independently if I can cover that role, and vice versa. A super being. But that's not the way life's gone. As an INTP, I've needed to figure out, and I'm still figuring out, how to be as peak of an organism as I can be independently. And now I'm getting... This is where it gets a little spooky, is I'm very good at identifying the problems, and with the right women ENTJs, I don't have to worry about how they need to solve them because I'm there to solve them. But when you're trying to teach someone how to beat them themselves, that's a completely different story, and this is uncharted territory for me. But it's still exciting because at least I get to use my PhD. And I'm sure it'll come in handy at some point. But this evening, we are here to shit on INTJs. So let's focus on that. I think INTJs live in constant and acute insecurity. So much so, I think we've already made a video titled INTJ Insecurity, but that well is so deep, if I did make that video, we are dipping into it twice. Every INTJ I've ever met has been like that assistant dude from The Princess and the Frog. Did you know that came out in 2009, by the way? I thought that was a 2012 or 2013 movie. Anyway, INTJs hate what they are inside. And I think there are a few reasons for that. One, they have inferior SE, which I can guess why, but a common trait among lower SE types is physical insecurity. INFJs are terribly physically insecure, which is why a lot of them spend so much time on their grooming and on their aesthetics. And you can always be thinner, look better. But there's a lot of self-hatred going on with INTJs. It's not just hating their bodies or the ways they look. There's also a lot of guilt. They feel ashamed of the people they are. It's like their entire lives, it's a series of standards they fail to reach. But they're standards set by other people. And ENTJs suffer with something like this, But the difference is ENTJs have inferior FI, meaning they can, in a weird way, depersonalize from themselves while also being competent enough to keep that up long into life without ever really needing to address it. Unless something happens, and then they have to. Whereas INTJs are bumbling people. INTJs are competent, usually more competent broadly than Joe Dipshit, and hyper competent in an autistic way, a savant-y way, with one or two specific things. But they... Oof. An INTJ can't stick a landing to save their lives, which only makes their obsession with these standards they fall short of even worse. And what's important to note is INTJs don't create their own standards. They also can't adapt standards from the natural world. What they do instead is they look at a list, let's say, or hypothetically, or metaphorically, of the most popular standards they can fall short of, the shit people care most about or seem to care most about that they fail in, and then they select those, or they select a number of those, and then make seeming like they live up to them their core identity, their core focus in life, even as they do, in fact, fall very short of these standards. And this puts them in a... this would put anyone in a bad spot. But with INTJs, I think there's a lot of resentment there, because INTJs will go out looking for trouble when they do this. Let's say this INTJ believes people are supposed to be good boxers, but this INTJ has glass bones. The INTJ knows he has glass bones. He's not unaware of it. I think that's another thing about INTJs which makes them so insufferable, is they know they fall short of these standards. As they try to convince themselves and others, they don't. And in fact, they don't just meet these standards, but they surpass them greatly. So Glass Bones ass will go out and pick fights with dudes. And this is a lose-lose situation for everyone. Because let's say the people he picks a fight with, they know he has glass bones, and they're not going to hit him. Well, he hates them for pitying him, for lying to him, for this and that. But then they hit him, they break his bones, and then he hates them for breaking their bones and reminding him that he sucks. Or a much easier example, an INTJ woman with terrible body issues. She will ask everyone she knows if she looks fat in this whatever, knowing 100% that she is fat. Fat as shit. And however you react, she's an enemy now. And this is another reason INTJs are infuriating, is they will make you offend them so they can hate you. And if you try to stay around them after they've put this shit on you, they'll mistreat you. And if you do anything in response, they cry out as they strike you. And this all makes them highly unstable. Something I'm noticing, this was part of the other video I was thinking about making, was shadow types, I think, at their cores, at the very centers, they're the same people. But then they branch out in different directions. One observation that for years now has been upsetting people, and I made it one time, was I noticed ENTPs are promiscuous in a way that feels distinct from other types. There is a curious intensity and broadness to ENTP sexuality I don't see talked about, but I still see. And I see it in INTJs too. But the reason this is important, aside from the fact that these two types are shadow types, and I think there's a connection there, the INTJ side of the observation leads me to believe there is another fold to this promiscuity thing. Because I don't think INTJs are, or I would describe INTJs as promiscuous first. I would describe them as unstable first. But their instability comes from their insecurity. This the pressure of never being enough, and in their own minds, and hating everyone and everything for it. You never know what an INTJ is going to do, but you can assume, safely assume, the reason they'll be doing it is because they're unstable, and they're unstable because they hate feeling judged in the negative at all times by everyone and no one simultaneously. They feel terrible about everything they do, but they're not going to stop doing it. For someone like me, the cost outweighs any potential benefit. But for other people, that might even be ideal. That might be the way you want someone to be. That's why I stick with my ENTJs. Every ENTJ is basically the same person, but there's a lot to that person. That's why I can talk about them endlessly. It's like I'm analyzing one omni being through a bunch of smaller beings. It's always the same shit, but every single time you see another layer, or you work out another reason, or you experiment with another method. And I guess INTJs are similar in the uniformity of their insecurity, but I don't like or respect whatever omni being INTJs are. But here's why I referenced the Princess and the Frog assistant guy. This is another way INTJs do insecurity. In a lot of cases, I think one of two things happens. Either an INTJ will attach themselves to a person they view as succeeding in a way they would like to succeed, or they get around people whom they weren't targeting, but in dealing with them, they eventually see things that the INTJ evaluates as they're doing better or more admirably. And in either case, they will be friendly at first, even weirdly submissive at first. And you think they're just being weird, but what they're actually doing, and maybe they don't realize this themselves at first, is they are expressing resentment to you in a sneaky way. Because what follows this weird, submissive, or congratulatory toward you even though you haven't done anything behavior? They stab you in your back as soon as they're able to, or they undermine opportunities for you, or they fuck with people's heads around you. They'll start trying to fuck you over the way an INFJ would, but an INTJ lacks an INFJ's sophistication. So you know it's them if they're trying to be sneaky. And it's more like they're fucking everything up for everybody. People who don't... I hate INFJs with a passion. But one thing you can say for INFJs is usually they at least won't sink a ship to kill you. An INTJ will sink a ship to kill you because they're unstable. I think INTJs are people who will never find peace. And that's because even if peace existed and INTJs found it, they would find a way to ruin it for themselves. And it would be fueled by some ugly little misery spiral. They're one of the most singularly self-destructive types I've ever seen. I like my ESFPs. They do have a habit of stepping on rakes, but that's accidental. They don't mean to do that. An INTJ will go out with the intention of fucking themselves and others up. And they'll live in lies while they do it, and they'll hate you for believing their lies. They'll hate you for humoring them. They'll hate you for not believing their lies or challenging them. They will hate everyone and everything, which sounds rich coming from me, but the difference between us is I like what I am, and I believe in it. My misery is divine. It's righteous, and it's true. Your misery is this insecure, and not even in a fun way, lying, self-destructive, other people destructive, making no progress toward anything ass. Nothing. You are a big, self-tearing apart nothing. INTJs always talk like they live in search of meaning, which is a great word. People love that word. But they live their lives in the most meaningless ways anyone can. And then they do art ho shit by trying to pretty it up. And it stinks. It's existentially trashy. But why am I saying all this? Aside from the fact I was so close to having learned nothing from my experiences with INTJs. So close. Last moment cinched it. Saved myself. It takes me such a long time to make a little progress in anything, but I do make progress. I believe in teaching people in a certain way. I believe in teaching people using the heat of the truth. If you don't like hearing something you know to be true, especially of yourself, then correcting it should be pretty easy. Stop doing what you're doing. Perfect example from my life. That murder mystery with the VC ENTJ woman. She hurt my feelings really good because my legs were small. That truth hurt. And what happened? I started squatting. I didn't like that she said something hurtful and true, and my reaction after being a little piss baby for a little bit was to do something about it. I'm telling you what I've seen INTJs to be in as true and as hurtful a way as I can, so maybe after you go through your little fucking piss baby thing, you will do something different and not continue to be a living tumor. And that's what most INTJs are. They are living tumors. You have all this shame, all this guilt. You realize those feelings exist to let you know you're doing something you probably shouldn't be doing. When in your life did you plan on listening to those feelings? Or do you just intend to wallow in them forever and change nothing? And fuck up your life and everyone else is in the process. Not that I think INTJs actually care about other people all that much, outside their capacity to validate or make it okay whatever bullshit the INTJ wants to believe about themselves today. You guys suck, and I will be nice when you show me something different. And that can happen. Why do you think I'm not as inclined to hate ENFPs as I was when I first got into typology? Enough ENFPs showed me something different. The ENFPs who suck still suck, but my hatred isn't as intense because I've seen enough of the good ones. Still a fucked up ratio there, but I've seen enough of the good ones. INTJs, that hasn't happened. I can count the likable INTJs I've met in my life on one hand. And even they still fall victim to the shit I'm talking about. The only difference is they didn't fuck me over in their little spirals. Those few. And I think we've made the point, so we will cut it here. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.